Ask Reddit. What is the most satisfying time you've caught someone in a lie? 1. I once had a graphic designer apply for a post using my artwork in his portfolio. Asked him all about the work and the thinking behind the designs before I showed him the originals in the door. 2. I'm ginger, so probably when my mom told me she loved me. 3. I went to high school with a pathological liar named Victoria. Our senior year, she thought it would be best to tell our class how she used to have Down syndrome as a child, but grew out of it. 4. I confronted my ex-husband, and he said, "I'm not having an affair." To which I reply, "Well, then why do you have 200 pages worth of messages and emails with sexual content sent between you and here?" He replies, I was hacked. I asked for 4.5 years. He said yes. I say, "How did the hackers get these 37 nude photos of you?" He replies, "That's not me." I say, "Come on, Mark. I can recognize your pasty fatness anywhere." 5. Once, an EMT caught this bratty kid faking a seizure. So she kept saying things like, if your kid was having a seizure, they'd do X, and the kid would do X. If your kid was having a seizure, they'd do Y, and the kid would do Y. The mother, who a moment ago was panicking, slapped the kid out of his lie. 6. I had a phone call from a company claiming that my PC had called them and notified them of an error in its essential system files. I simply replied, "How exactly did my PC call you?" There was an awkward silence for a second or so before they thanked me for my time and hung up the phone. 7. A girl I dated told me she was pregnant and showed me the pee stick with a positive result. Later that day, I took her out for dinner. Towards the end of the meal, I asked for champagne and get down on one knee and hold up a ring box. She screams, giddy with excitement, until I finally open the box. It has a little note that says, "I'm dumping your ass." She looks at me dumbfounded, and I simply say, "I had a vasectomy before we ever met." 8. Well, my dad said he stole my nose. That lying prick. 9. My ex was going away for the summer to a different city. When she was away, I was missing her too much, so I decided to surprise her. When she sees me, she seems happy, but something doesn't feel quite right. Shortly after, she was in the shower when someone knocked on the front door. I answered it. It was a guy about my age who asked me, "Is Sarah here?" And I reply, "Yeah, she's in the shower. We're about to head out for lunch. Can I help you with anything?" He says, "I'm Sarah's boyfriend." I said, "Me too." I put on my shoes, grabbed my bag, left, and never spoke to her again. 10. My human pretended like he threw a ball and even yelled "fetch," but I couldn't find any ball in the direction that he supposedly threw it. I later saw him playing with the same ball when I came back empty-handed. As payback for his blatant treachery, I shit on his rug. If you haven't figured it out, I am a dog. 11. I used to be a substitute teacher that was called to return off into a particular school, so I knew the students pretty well. One day, there was a very small event with milk and cookies in a room for kids and their reading mentors. My student, Jay, was not on the list. He asked me if he could go get a cookie, to which I said no. So, instead, he asked me if he could go to the bathroom. I said, "Okay, but don't go into the other room to get a cookie. They're just for the mentors and the kids they help." Cut to him returning 15 minutes later. I asked where he had been for that long. He replied, "Bathroom." I saw the crumbs on his shirt and said, "What kind of cookie was it?" And he said, "Chocolate chee." Oh, dang. 12. Boyfriend says one day, "You gave me chlamydia. I'm not mad about it, but you should get yourself checked to get treatment." I reply, "I got checked when we become a couple and was 100% clean. So who are you cheating on me with?" 13. I was checking IDs in a club and a kid handed me my own that I had lost many years ago. I started questioning him and he knew my parents' names, my address, DOB, etc. The kid had been studying since my family name is really hard to pronounce. He even went as far as to sign a piece of paper imitating my signature. When I told him it wasn't his ID, he insisted it was and threatened to call the police. In that moment, I pulled my wallet, showed him my ID, and told him I would be keeping the old one. His face was priceless, the rest of the bouncers, and I had a good laugh. 14. Once, my friend told his girlfriend he couldn't hang out that night as they had initially planned because he wasn't feeling very good. After sleeping it off, he felt better, so he asked her if she wanted to meet after all, but she said she was just going to finish her homework and call a night. He said he would do the same, but instead, he came to meet me at a bar. After a few drinks, we moved to the dance floor, and I catch a glimpse of his girlfriend across the room. Well, as I looked from her, over to him, and back to her, they noticed each other. I got to watch as their eyes met, and their expressions went to looks of complete horror in one glorious moment. 15. An ex-girlfriend of mine called to tell me she was pregnant and that she needed money to terminate the pregnancy. I did the math quickly in my head and realized that there was no way she could be pregnant by me because we had stopped having relations long before we split. So I told her that as the father, I had rights too, and that I wanted her to have the child and I would take full custody and pay her medical bills. She was speechless and then said, "I'll call you back." She called a day or so later, saying she had lost the baby. 16. While working at a tech store, I had a customer getting loud with one of my agents. I go out front to see what's going on, and I have a father and daughter yelling at one of my agents for installing viruses on their brand new computer that they had only bought the day before. I take over for my agent, and the father is chewing me out how they never took the computer online, and when they powered it on today, it was infected with some virus. And there's no way they're going to pay for a removal, and that we infected the computer when we gave it to them. The daughter is adamant that she never used the internet before powering it on that day to install her AV software. While they're yelling at me, I locate the cause of the infection in the daughter's temp files, showing that it was downloaded late that night. I also pull up her internet history, showing a ton of surfing to some naughty sites. I spin the computer around and show the father the information. He looks at me, looks at her, and without saying another word hands me his credit card. 17. Dated a girl for a month who used to talk about how her ex was so terrible and used to beat her up, steal her things, rip up her clothes, etc. I ran into her ex, didn't know it until some time into the conversation, at a bar and found out he was a pretty stand-up guy. Long story short, we find out she had been sleeping with both of us for the past few weeks. That night, she texts me and tells me that her ex, the one I just talked to, just broke in her house and stole her car keys. Meanwhile, he's standing right next to me. A few days pass, and I'm waiting for the right moment to catch her in a big lie and make her feel like shit for cheating. Her ex had become a friend of mine by this point. So him and I were talking behind the scenes while she lied to both of us about all kinds of random stuff. Fast forward to the part where she finds out we talked one night. She starts asking me about what he said, so she could use it to file a restraining order against him. Just then, I get a phone call from the ex saying he heard a crazy story about how this girl was trying to get him to help her set up a restraining order against me. I'm like, WTF? She said the same thing about you. We laughed. The look on her face when I gave her the phone was priceless. 18. My ex-girlfriend tried to prove her lie was a truth by creating a fake email account and using it to fabricate a forwarded email to me to prove a person and an event was real. I copied the email address, a Yahoo login, and tried to log into it. I hit reset password, and it prompted me with the question Yahoo gives when resetting a password. Complete the phone number associated with the account. I put my ex's cell number in, and she got a reset password text message. That's when she finally admitted to the lie, and in my eyes, all the previous suspected lies. 19. My 13-year-old daughter ran away from her mother's home and appeared at my doorstep with a bruise on her face. She informed me her mother had backhanded her and bounced her face off the refrigerator door handle. A year later, while in court to gain sole custody of my daughter and representing myself, the court justice asked, "What is this abuse about?" I told him of how my daughter showed up with bruises on her face. My ex stood up and shouted that she would never do such a thing to her child. I couldn't, as a mother, ever strike my child. Knowing my ex could never pass up an opportunity to correct me, I told the justice. When my daughter showed up, she informed me that her mom had backhanded her and bounced her face off the liqueur cabinet. Without missing a beat, my ex said, "It wasn't the liqueur cabinet, it was the refrigerator." Sweet justice. 20. I used to work for this complete asshole named Peter who hadn't paid me in a few weeks. I kept asking him about it, until one day he handed me a letter from someone called Harry, who he said was the CEO. I thought this was suspicious as I'd never heard of Harry before, and when I was hired, Peter had told me he was the CEO. After being fired, I sent many emails to Peter to get my back pay, since I was owed nearly $2,400. He replied by saying Harry was not approving my pay. Finally, I called the Pennsylvania Department of Labor and Industry. I set up an arbitration hearing. When Peter arrived, the first thing he said was, "My name is Peter, and I pay my employees." Throughout the hearing, I showed my timesheets, the contract I signed with Peter, the letter signed by Harry that said I was fired, and the host of emails in which Peter states that Harry is the one who is holding up my back pay. Then came the coup de grace. I busted out a final document, Harry's death certificate filed with the Social Security Administration. Harry had indeed once been the CEO of the company. Unfortunately, he died 2 years before I ever started working there, making it quite difficult for him to be the one who was keeping my money from me. Peter was furious. He started shouting and referring to me as this little prick. He was caught in an obvious fraud, and he was pissed. Not only did I get my back pay, but the arbitrator also awarded me additional money that Peter had to pay in fines and penalties. It was so sweet. 21. Lube Tech at a Jiffy Lube tried to convince me that I needed a radiator service on a car that didn't have a radiator. He even showed me a pH strip to prove that the fluid had gone acidic. I told him if he could show me the radiator, I'd cheerfully pay for the service. His face when he opened my car's trunk, where most cars keep their hoods, was pretty priceless. What did you think of these answers? Leave your opinion in the comments, or share if you also have a great story about catching someone in a lie. Don't forget to subscribe. We are a new channel, and we really appreciate your support. We publish stories with new topics multiple times a week. From Reddit Stories Bonanza, we wish you an amazing week.